Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this week's episode. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. Here's Alday.
What is so going on with the new Order 66 raid? Welcome back, Islanders. Welcome to another video. Today we're going to talk about all the information on the new raid, Order 66, and there's a lot of positive stuff in there. So I'm going to talk quite positively about the raid, the things I quite liked, and then at the end I'm going to lay out my strategies if I was low, early game, mid game, or late game player as to what teams I'd go for, what I'd look out for, what relics maybe I'd stop out for, and obviously the raid's coming out on the 26th, I think, but we'll talk about that in a second. Anyway, I need your favour, everybody, right now. I want you to hit the subscribe button. We need more subscribers on these videos. We need more content. Anyway, we're going to talk about the raid. Before I talk, I am actually quite positive about this raid. A lot of positives I see, a lot of things they've adjusted, and there's a lot of things that maybe other people haven't picked up on. I honestly haven't watched any other videos, so this is really just my take. So quite happy with a lot of it. I will say that we did start the series with 3 videos, if you look back, covering kind of the state of the game, and those were negative in focus. I don't think you now then need to talk about every little bit of that again when something is launched. So yes, I concede that there are question marks about some of the characters that are allowed or not allowed. I'll talk about 1 or 2 that jump out for me. And obviously it is a little bit focused on the newer content, or the newer, I shouldn't say content, the new characters they have brought. So we'll talk a bit about that, but let's talk about the raid. The raid's coming on the 26th. Now, that is assuming you're not already in a raid, and it's assuming you have the tickets. So probably you want your guild leader now, or on the 21st, 22nd, depending on where you are, to switch off the auto launch on your current raid if you want to take part in this new content. And I would kind of say you probably should. You know, it's going to be a fun event for the community, lots of videos, lots of people will be live for it, and it'll be good things to interact no matter what level you're at. And I'm going to talk about that because I think moreover than any other raid or content they've added, this is actually more accessible for the early game. I have some concerns on what rewards they might get, but we'll talk about that as we go. So the raid's going live. The characters you're allowed, so obviously you're allowed all the pirates. They do mention that there's going to be 2 pirate teams. It is a little confusing to me because they say that you're going to get a pirate team soon because the next marquee is a leader. And then you're going to have 2 pirate teams which are led by the next Conquest unit and led by the next Galactic Legend. So essentially, I'm a bit concerned about the pirates. It looks like they're going to give you like a false leader, I say. And then the Conquest unit is going to be the actual leader. And then the Galactic Legend is going to be the other leader. But we'll talk more about that in time. We'll talk about the pirates in another video. There's no point really talking about them in this because they kind of sit separately. But bear in mind that there's going to be 2 pirate teams, and they're going to be what this is designed for. You know, if you ignore the obvious Order 66 and pirates thing, this is going to be the new content. This is where CG is going to try and heavily monetize it. So the pirates are going to be quite overpowered in this. So you got the pirates. You have the new Bad Batch. So that's the Omega Fugitive one, the one that's launched now, the one you're probably farming if you're late game. You're probably working on them now. You're probably getting them into relics. They're allowed, but obviously a lot of controversy that the old Bad Batch aren't allowed. That's one thing I would say. We'll talk a little bit about some of the restrictions, maybe cover it now. I would have included the old Bad Batch, but I think we could have included it up to, say, level 4. You know, as a team. So you could have locked it out of the higher levels and say, even if you've got Relic 9, you can only enter at Relic 4 level. I think we should have put the old Bad Batch in, allowed at a Relic 5 level into that. The Relic 5s, I'm going to talk about relics rather than levels because it gets a bit confusing. But the Relic 5 level, I think we could have included the old Bad Batch, but then you could have locked it out of higher levels. Maybe would have been nice. you've got the obvious dark side clones and Tarkin lead. I like the team. Actually, you know, the dark side clones under Lord Vader have a huge amount of utility in the game. They are a really, really, really good new team. We might talk about them in another video, but they are really, really good. Obviously, you can't use Lord Vader. You have to use Tarkin. There's a little bit of a double up. I think most people that have Lord Vader probably already have Tarkin at some stage. So it's not too exploitative or too difficult. It would have been nice to have used Lord Vader, but I guess I'm happy to let them do this. But I think Darkside Clones is going to be a team. They certainly, we'll talk about the bonuses in a minute, but Darkside Clones get a lot of focus in this raid. And then the other teams, or the other characters you're allowed, are the Jedi Vanguard faction. Now, essentially they're in 2 or 3 groups for me. You've got the brand new Mace Windu team, which is obviously where you're going to end up. Then you've probably got a Keller and Beck team, and then you have just added on other characters. Now, we'll talk about those added on other characters in a minute, but I do think that, if I'm honest, I think if you're the very top of the game, you're going to end up running 2 pirate teams, one under the new GL pirate, one under the new Conquest character, the one after Smee, I guess. You're going to end up running the new Bad Batch. You're going to run Darkside Clones with Tarkin, and you'll probably run the new Mace team. So those, I think, are going to be the 5 best teams. I would predict that. And then you're probably underneath that, you're going to maybe be Keller and Beck team is probably going to be the only other, let's say, viable team. Whether or not we'll be able to mix and match and what will happen is something it'll be interesting to see. You know, what happens if I split my pirates up with my Vanguard? Could I maybe make 2 pirate teams by sticking on an Aayla Secura or a Shaak Ti? Obviously Shaak Ti has some synergy with the Bad Batch, or well, they're not clones, so anyway, you know what I mean though. There might be a little bit of theory crafting. You might be able to dilute some of the teams. I think those are the 5 teams we're aiming for, and really, to be honest, there's only maybe 6 or 7 teams in total. I would have liked that 8th, the old Bad Batch, but I would have been happy to have it relic limited. Okay. I quite like the bonuses. They've obviously added on a lot of bonuses. I'm not going to run them all. I like what they've done. There is quite clearly a little puzzle element to it. You're going to have people like tanks or supports and healers are getting a bit of a buff. Those are going to help some of those Jedi Vanguard characters that are maybe not as good as others. So I think that's a really good step. I really, really like the fact they've done that. So I'm feeling as though my teams that I'm taking into this raid are going to feel different than when I use them in TWGAC. They're going to have slightly different mechanics, and they're going to be different power levels and different mixes. They're probably going to need different modding as well. So I really, really like that, because I really feel as though with this raid in particular, we'll see a big influx of new strats, new this, new that. And that brings me on to the other thing that I quite like. Level 0 has no relic requirement, no requirement at all. So even if you're at gear 7 or gear 8 and you have the Jedi or you have the new team, you're going to be able to go into this at level 0. I think that's quite good. I do hope that then therefore leads to you being able to I hope there's a bit of new content creators and new strategies and people with using like gear 11 things to score enough points to get, say, 100,000 or 200,000 with a team. I think that's going to be a really good area of content to look for, and I think it's going to apply for, you know, all the new players out there. So the other thing that they've announced, or the other thing that's in there, is they have the faction bonuses again. Now, I don't really like the faction bonuses because I'm already kind of relic limited for what levels I can enter. Why do I then get bonuses when I hit certain levels? Now, I always think of these, you know, if you ever play things like League of Legends or Smite, you get like a power spike at certain levels, and these are what these like. And I think it's quite important because it kind of, I've made a mistake. The new Bad Batch team gets a power spike at Relic 1, Relic 5, and Relic 9. The Darkside Clones get it at Relic 3, 5, 7, and 9. And the Vanguards, or Mace in particular, gets at 3, and then the Vanguards at 5, 8, and 9. So essentially, if you look at kind of where the Pyre spikes are going to be coming, you probably want to only take your new Bad Batch to Relic 5 first. See how they perform there, take them to that first Relic spike, or that first Power spike, and then see how they perform. Don't take them higher. I've got them, I was aiming at 7, I forgot about these, and obviously they don't have a Power spike at 7 as far as I can tell at the moment. Dark Side Clones, probably you take those to Relic 7, or really as high as you want if you've got Lord Vader. You've got a lot of value going in the Dark Side Clones at the moment, a lot of events you can put them into, and they're very good with Lord Vader, but that's contingent on having Lord Vader. So if you don't have Lord Vader's obviously locked behind the Bad Batch, so you kind of, there's a lot of amount of Kairos, to be honest, to get Lord Vader. But anyway, if you've got Lord Vader, then the Dark Side Clones are a smart way to go, and I think that'll be an area where I go next, because I'm sure of that, rather than Pirate faction. And the Jedi Vanguard, I probably wouldn't put too much into it. I think you're going to have Mace. Mace is really where they're going. That's the new team they're launching now. Kits are all out there. New marquees coming, but Mace is really going to be that 5th team. So I think for me, when I'm looking at where to put my relics or where to put any resources I have, I think Dark Side Clones is safe. You can pile them all in there, even more so if you have Lord Vader. I think the Bad Batch to Relic 5, initially, new Bad Batch. And I think I'd be careful of the rest of them. I think I would, certainly the new Mace team, certainly take that as high as you want. That will be well done. The new Conquest, the new Galactic Legend Pirate obviously will be good. But I think I'd be a little bit kind of nervous about taking Jedi Vanguard teams up early, thinking that I'm doing well in a raid or stretching for a really high box. I think you take one team up at a time, be it firstly the Dark Side Clones or firstly the new Bad Batch, and then you take the other one up and then you move on. Anyway, let's talk about what they've done with the rewards. Now this is another area that I think could have been slightly cuter. You need 10 million to get to the first box as a guild, obviously. Now when you work that out, all he does is he tries to work in his head. You're going to need about 200,000 per guild member. And when you look through the scoring, it's a little bit unclear. You get like 5,000 for killing one of the sidelings. You get 65,000 for freeing a Jedi. We'll talk more about mechanics in a future video. But I think it would be nice to see that even lower. You know, I think we all want to see the raid enjoyed by more people at more levels and more people interact with more characters. Then more people get to play it. Then it's worth investing more programming time because more people engage, more people enjoy. So I think they could have dropped that first tier down to 5 million. I would have liked to see that. But I think the bigger problem with what they've done, and maybe why they don't do that, is the rewards are quite flat. When you look at tier 1 versus the absolute final tier box, there's very little difference in Mark 1, Mark 2. The real difference is in the Mark 3 currency. And even then, when you start getting to, I'd say there's one at 130 million and one now at 245, that's down 20 million, which is about 2.6 million or 5 million per person. Those are actually returning pretty decent rewards across the board. So I actually think when my strategy, and maybe we talk about my strategy now, my strategy is to get my Bad Batch, my new Bad Batch team running, get my Dark Side Clones running, try and get my 2.6 or plus up to maybe 5 million with those, and then the also rans I have sitting around. And as those other teams come online, the Mace, the new Pirates, or the 2 new Pirate teams, then I'll start to really accelerate in the raid, and then I'll be getting the 10, 12s. But I don't think I'm going to strive for higher than maybe 5 or 6 million at the start, but I'm going to concentrate on 2 teams rather than 5. Anyway. So let me kind of cover the strategies then. So if you're new to the game, I'm going to talk to my inner room initiates. You have to do the new raid. I'm really sorry. The new raid is where CG are putting all the Mark 3. The Mark 3 is going to be more and more important going forward. So as much as it might pain you, you probably need to do this raid and you need to accept the pain as a guild. I do think with the changes to level 0, you're going to be able to take in, hopefully, there's a great guide out there from people we talked about, people at Bit Dynasty, other content creators who cover newer games, people like Star Wars Dad. People like that are going to be able to kind of hopefully give you a set of sequence or modding to get yourself that 200,000 or 300,000 with very low gear teams. I think that's going to be excellent content. I think if you focus on that and you take in those 1 or 2 teams and you slog through and you get that tier 1 box, you're going to have a huge success in this raid. So I do think that if you don't have any of the teams, I think the new Bad Batch, or potentially you start heading towards Keller and Beck. People like that, the dark side clones do need to be quite high relics to start being very relevant, but maybe you might have more fun with the pirates. So I think this is a choice where you kind of go with the teams you want if you really want to take up a team and get yourself a higher level. But to be honest, I would say look for that guide, get that guide, try and get your first crate, your tier 1 crate as a guild, and celebrate that. Back onto my mid-rim master. So if I was in the middle of the game, what would I think? Well, you're probably having to make a choice. I think it depends on whether you have Lord Vader. If you have Lord Vader, you 100% go dark side clones. If you don't have Lord Vader, probably Mace Windu. The new Mace Windu is going to be highly accessible to you, and possibly the new Bad Batch as well is going to be highly accessible. But you probably want 1 or 2 of these teams depending on where you are. Hopefully you probably have a Keller and Beck team, and I think that's going to be key for the mid-rim masters. How good is Keller and Beck? What level does he kick in? He does have his own little bonus that kicks in at one point. He's got a little change to his kit, I think, that happens. So I think Keller and Beck's going to be key. I think slog on, and don't be too negative. If you're only getting the tier 1 or tier 2 or tier 3 box as a guild at the start, don't be discouraged. You're doing very, very well. You're getting actually really solid rewards for even what sounds like you're not getting that many points. You're getting some good solid rewards, and certainly much more than if you stayed in some of the other raids. So I think kind of staying positive. I think accept the fact that a lot of guilds won't score maximum, will score quite low initially, but we'll get there over the next 1 or 2 months as teams start to come online. So I think focus on that. Don't lose heart. And then my outer rim legends. Well, you're probably already got the new Bad Batch. You're probably already heading towards your dark side clones. Similar to me, I think I wouldn't spend resources on the Jedi Vanguard. I would wait for Mace. I think the 5 teams that is going to be the best are going to be the new Bad Batch, the 2 pirate teams, the dark side clones, and the Mace Windu team. Certainly with them already announcing that there's a GL pirate, you can guarantee that every single GL we get is going to be a requirement for that. So I think you start piling on the relics onto the pirates as they come out, get them all up as high as you can. I think you're heading for a fun GL pirate. Anyway, that's my thoughts on the raid. I'm actually quite positive on it. A lot of things that I really think have moved on. Yes, all the gripes are out there. You can read them in the forums if you're that interested. But I think for me, I think a lot of positives, and that's how I'm going to handle it and where I'm going to go.